We're now on section 8.5, and we've come to a really interesting use of percents. So it's a great real-world application here. So the I can statement is I can solve simple, let's write the word simple right here, simple interest problems. So the warm-up question says, what is interest? So think about that for just a second. You may have heard the word interest. Now, in this case, we're not talking about being interested in something. We're talking about how it applies to the world of finance. In other words, how it applies to the world of money. So finance, aka also known as money. So interest can be good or bad. So let's figure out what interest is. So interest, we're going to use a big capital letter I to represent interest. It's the amount of money paid for the privilege of borrowing. So let's write the word borrowing money. Now, there are lots of times and ways where we borrow money. So it's really awesome when interest is paid to you. So if somebody pays you interest, that's really awesome because you get more money than you had. And that can happen when you put money in the bank, money in a stock market, an investment account, something like that. But it's not very fun when you have to pay interest. So if you're the one who has to pay the interest to somebody, that's no fun at all. So if you have a car loan or a mortgage, that's a fancy word for a home loan, or student loans or different things like that, you have to pay interest. So you have to pay for the privilege of borrowing money. Now, the simplest type of interest, which is no surprise, is called simple interest. So let's write the word simple right here. And here's how simple interest works. You are paid a set percentage for a set amount of time, and interest is only paid at this is really important, interest is only paid at the end of whatever that time period is. Now, the formula is pretty easy. It's I equals P R T. And you'll notice between these three variables, these three letters, there's nothing in between there. So it's all multiplication, implied multiplication right there. So let's talk about what these are. So P stands for principal. And what principal means is it's the original amount that's borrowed or invested. The original amount that's borrowed or invested. And then R is the rate. It's short for interest rate or percentage rate. Okay, so that's always entered as a decimal. So remember, if we ever have a percent in a problem to put in a calculator or in an equation, we always put it in as a decimal. Okay, so the next question is, well, we've got the I, that's interest, the P, that's principal, the R, that's the rate. What do you think T stands for? Well, T stands for time. Okay, now why does this involve multiplication? It's all multiplication over on this side right here. Well, it's a percentage of something else. So we're going to pay interest, a percentage rate, on the amount of principal for a set amount of time. So because it's a percent of something else, the word of means multiplication. So let's take a look at an example right here with some nice round numbers. So let's say $1,000 is put in an account bearing simple interest of 8% per year for 50 years. How much interest is due at the end of the term? And when we say term, that's another way of saying at the end of the time period. So let's write down what the formula is. The formula is I equals PRT. I'll slide this down so we can see that again. So P is the principal. That's the amount that we put in the account. So that's going to be 1,000. So we're going to put a 1,000 right there. Then we need the interest rate or the percentage rate. And we always put that in as a decimal. So remember, we have to move that over 2 places. So 0.08. And then the time period, we're going to leave this in there for a really long time, 50 years. So all we have to do is pull up the calculator and just throw those in. So 1,000 times 0.08 times 50. And I suppose if you wanted to do the parentheses, that would be totally okay. Again, double check that what we've got here is what we've got on our paper. Hit enter, and we end up with 4,000. So we're talking money here. That's the money that is paid for the privilege of borrowing that money. So you're basically lending it to the bank. The bank is borrowing it from you. So they pay you for the privilege of borrowing your money. Now, that's how much interest we got, but we want to know what is the amount in the account after the interest is paid. Well, we take the original amount of 1,000, because that's still ours. We add the 4,000, so we end up with, there's $5,000 in there in the end. Okay, which sounds pretty cool. You just put $1,000 in there, it sits around, and then it grows to 5,000. There are other ways to make money grow a lot faster, but this is the formula we're going to deal with right now. So just simple interest. So in example 2 here, it says use the simple interest formula to complete the following table. And then it says we've got interest, which is I, principal, which is P, percentage rate, which is R, and then T, which is time, and then it says the balance. Now, a balance is how much is in there. And just like we did up here, we took the original principal and we added whatever the interest was. So the balance in the account is going to be the principal plus the interest. So let's take a look at this. We're going to be given 3 pieces, and we've got to find the other one from the formula. So again, the formula here is I equals PRT. Now, I would write that down repeatedly as you're doing the assignment until you've got this memorized. So we have the principal, we have the percentage rate, and we have the time. So let's just write down I equals $230. That's the principal. The interest rate, move that over 2 places, so that's going to be 0.096, and then we're going to times that by 8. So we'll grab the calculator, pull that up, and let's see what we get here. Clear this off, 230 times 0.096, there's the 9.6%, and we're going to have it in there for 8 years. So $176.64. So $176.64. So we'll go ahead and circle that. That right there is the answer for the interest, but we need to come down here, and this is a really simple formula. We just take the principal. We take the principal right here, $230. We add the interest. So this is going to be $230. We add the 176.64. So we'll grab the calculator real quick. Actually, I'm just going to take that answer and I'm going to add, so I can just hit plus, and it says take that last answer and add $230, and we end up with $406.64. So that's how much is in the account, $406.64. Okay. Now, you'll notice that this is a big black bar right here. These 4 boxes right here, these 4 variables, they're used in the formula, and then this one right here is kind of separate. We figure that out when we're done, and we figure out what the principal or the interest was or whatever happens to be. So let's take a look at the next one. Slide this down so we can see the top of it. What's missing is the principal. It's still the same formula, so again, I'm going to write down I equals PRT, and we're going to plug in the pieces that we know. So the interest is $485.50. We don't know the principal, so I'm just going to use a P for that. This is a decimal, is going to be 0.075, and then we're going to times that by 2. Now, if you would like to, you can multiply those together. So I'm going to do this, 485.50, and then I'm going to multiply these together, and we're going to end up with, let's see what we get, 0.075 times 2. You might already know what it is, 0.15. So P times 0.15, and then we're going to divide both of these by 0.15. Now, the nice thing about this is we're just doing this a step at a time. We're going to figure out what the answer is, and we don't have to get too complicated about the stuff we plug into the calculator, but I will show you another way to do this in just a second. So we're going to take 485, 0.5, better make sure I got that in there, and then we're going to divide by 0.15. We'll hit enter, and we get this, $3,236.66 and a little bit more. The question is that little bit more, is that enough to bump that up to 67 cents? It is. So it's going to be $32.36.67. So $32.36.67. Okay? So $32.36.67. And I better create a little bit more space for this. Okay? So there's our answer right there. And then, of course, we still need to add the principal and the interest together. So the original amount in there was $32.36.67. And then we're going to add the $485.50. So let's just see what we get on that. Let's see. Clear this off. $32.36.67. And then we're going to add $485.50. Everything looks good, looks like the right numbers, and we end up with $37.22.17. So the final amount is $37.22.17. So again, we're filling out this total balance right here after we figure out whatever these numbers are. Now, there's an asterisk by this guy right here because a couple different things. First of all, we already know the interest and the principal. So we can come over here and we can add these together right away. This is going to be $4,200 in there to begin with. The interest was $1,234. So we just add the two of those together. Let's see what we end up with. We'll do 4,200, and we're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice that it works out that way. And we end up with, you probably could have done this, $54.34. So a nice little dollar amount, $54.34. We'll go ahead and circle that. But what we don't know here is, notice that we're missing the percentage rate. So let's write down the formula. The formula is I equals PRT. So the interest we know, 1, 2, 3, 4. The principal we know, 4,200. We don't know the percentage rate, so we're going to use R to represent that. Again, P on this one stands for principal, not percentage. And then we're going to multiply that by 10.25 years. 10.25. Now you might want to think about this. 10.25 years, that would be 10 years and a quarter of a year. So what is 1/4 of a year? Well, 1/4 of 12 months would be 3 months. So this is actually 10 years and 3 months. Okay? But the nice thing is we put it in as a decimal. The calculator just takes care of it. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is, rather than multiply these two numbers together and then have a gigantic number times R, this is what you want to be careful with, we're just going to divide by both of these at the same time. So multiplying by 4,200, I divide by 4,200 to undo that, and multiplying by 10.25, we're going to divide by 10.25. So we're going to divide both sides by 4,200 times 10.25. Now, as long as you're careful, here's what your calculator is going to spit out. And you've got to be careful about the way you put this in here. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the top. And then we're going to divide by, because we've got more than one expression or more than one factor in the denominator, we're going to put that in parentheses. Always a good idea. If you've got more than one thing in the numerator or more than one thing in the denominator, put it in parentheses. So we're going to do 4,200, and then we're going to times that by 10.25, and then we're going to close the parentheses right there. Okay, now that does slide off the screen, but we can go back here and we can verify that we've got that put in the right way. Everything looks good. And again, notice that what's going to happen here is it's going to multiply these together, because order of operations, we do parentheses first. It's going to multiply these together, then carry out the division, which is exactly what we want. So we'll hit enter, and we end up with this ugliness right here. So I'm going to write this down, 0.02866. So 0.02866. Now, what you've got to remember, and another reason this has an asterisk by it, is this. This is a percent. So we need to take this and we move it over 1, 2. So this is going to be 2.866%. But that's not the answer, because we usually round to the nearest hundredth. So this is either going to be 86 or 87. So this ends up being 2.87%. Lots going on here to keep track of. Okay, last one on this side. You'll notice what's missing here is the time, but we can add the two of those together. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see, what do we got here? 5, 6, 7, 8. Boy, somebody was being clever when they made this problem up. 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 8, 7, 6. So we're going to add those together, 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay, so we end up with 15,554. So the total amount in the account, the principal plus the interest, is 15,554. So we'll go ahead and circle that. Now what we're missing here is the time. So let's go ahead and write down 5, 6, 7, 8, because that's the interest. And then 9, 8, 7, 6, because that's the principal. We know the interest rate is going to be, careful with this, move it over two places, 0.0199, and then we times that by t. We don't know what the time is on this one. That's what we're solving for. We're going to do that same trick that we did before. We're going to divide by 9876 times 0.0199. Okay, those are gone from that side. And again, just be careful with the way you type this in the calculator. Now, just for the heck of it, I'm going to put the top in parentheses, 5, 6, 7, 8. Close that set of parentheses. Divide by, we'll put the bottom in parentheses, 9876 times 0.0199. There's our 1.99%. Close that off. Looks pretty good. Hit enter, and here's what we end up with. 28.890. Now, we're going to two decimal places right here, and we're trying to find a time, so that zero is not going to bump it up. So this is going to be 28.89. Question is, what label do we put on that? It's not a dollar. It's not a percent. It is years. Okay? So that's how you fill out a table like that. But let's flip it over on the other side and let's take a look at how to do a little bit more of a story problem here, more of a real life situation. Again, what's the formula for simple interest? I equals PRT. Say it a whole bunch of times so you've got it memorized. Mr. Jensen got a loan for $6,392 to fund a carnival for the Elkridge students. The loan will bear simple interest, okay, 3.95% annually, and must be paid back in 3 years and 6 months. Oh, take a look at that, 3 years and 6 months. And then the question is, how much will he need to pay back? So here's what we need to do. Just like we did on the other side, we're going to do the interest is equal to principal times the rate times the time. So we don't know the interest. We do know that he borrowed this much, $63.92. We know the interest rate. Let's move that over 2 places, 0.0395. Again, if you put the decimal over 2 places, you can see that 3.95%. 3 years and 6 months. So 3 years, 6 months. We've got to put that in as a decimal, as a time, as a number. So this is 3 years and 6 months out of 12. So this is going to be 3.5, or we're going to write it down as 3.5. Heck of a lot easier that way. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in the calculator. So let's take a look and see what we've got. We end up with, let's see, 6392 times 0.0395. And then we're going to times that by 3.5. Double check everything, make sure that it's in there the right way. Hit enter, and we end up with 883.69. Is that enough to bump that up to 70 cents? Because this is $883.69 and a little bit more. That 4 is not quite enough. So this is going to be $883.69. We're going to add that to the original amount that was borrowed, $63.92, and we get the total amount that has to be paid back. So we're going to take this, 883.69. There's the interest. We're going to add the principal, $63.92, and we end up with $72.75.69. So $72.75.69. So he's actually going to have to pay back almost $7,300. Okay, go ahead and circle how you feel about this right now, and good luck on the assignment.